Namaskar. Namaskar and good evening to all. First, let me thank Mr. Nathan for introducing about me. And first, good thing that just I was thinking when I entered in this hall or before in this hotel, I came to know about certain people first time I met. But the world is so small that all of them was related to each other in some form. When I just spoke, Mr. Kamal Singh, he came to my office in the afternoon and then realized that we had met earlier. And when he was in IMA, we used to, number of times we met together for working together. When I came here, I come to know about Rashna Mukherjee. I was never met her earlier, but when just come to know that her husband has worked with me for years together. And rather I know husband from 85 onwards, or 87 onwards till now. Then Mr. Prabhakar, when I met him, and we come to know the same town where I worked and built up my career in Bhilai. He was born and brought up in Bhilai. Next, when I talked to Madam Uma, she also told us she came from an industry, a Signod, for the product which we continuously in Durgapur and Bhilai, we used to buy from this product and used in our industry. Then Mr. K.K. Sinha, definitely, he told that he was there in the steel industry, in Bokaro Steel Plant. And by the time I came up at a little middle level, he left the company. So that way that I found that how small is the world, how close people are there indirectly. And this happened in just in a half an hour back together. Now the question which he raised about the testing. First I will tell you, I am not professional HR man. I am just a pure technical man, industrial management man. I worked almost 37 years in the steel industry. Right from college, I joined SAIL. Until 2014, I was continued in the same company. Only in the end, I was elevated and brought by the government to this company. The question is about the talent, about things. Why we need talent? Why we need skill? The definitely question is to perform our work. If experience, if skilled persons are there, he will perform much better way. What I should say, the business way to run, we have to run the profitable, we have to run the equitable, and integrated way. And in any profession, we need basically a skilled people. We have to retain the people. We know that nowadays, a lot of people change. It is a big problem for the HR department, how to retain the things. But earlier, it was not so. Just example, I spent so much of time in the same company. And most of my colleagues are remaining the same. Very few, maybe hardly 10% people left the company and joined other company. So PSU culture was like that, particularly steel industry. Maybe there was not much opportunity. But nowadays, again, we recruit a lot of people in steel industry. And we found that after training over 2 years or 3 years, a lot of people just jump over to the other companies. And we feel that we have trained people has gone. What is to be done? But when we analyze, we find average hardly 10 to 15% level. 80% people remain in the organization. 10 to 15% people leave. Then what is the reason? Analyze the reason why people leave. What is the reason for that? Then found definitely wages, salaries are more. I found when I joined Burnpur recently, 2 years back, we recruited a new people, IT engineers, trained them, but immediately found that within 1 year they left. Somebody joined railway, somebody joined different, because the wages was higher. So this is one consideration. Comfort of the place is another consideration. So to retain the people, we have to see that people should be reasonably paid, and basic things are to be taken care. Because I came from an industry where remote locations are there. Some of the places in present my organization like NMDC, which is working in very, very remote locations. We heard the name. Those names are not famous for other things, but they are famous for most activities. We read in the paper, in near Kirandul, 35 CSF Jawans was killed in the last month. Year back, huge level of politician was killed in that area. So if somebody have to go to that area, work there, we have to give definitely a good training, good skill, and people motivate the people to work in those areas. So that is where we retain. And I found that NMDC are doing that job, and very well, we are very lean and good organization. With the 5,000 people, we are producing 30 million ton. It is one of the most efficient as far as iron ore mining company is concerned. People are there, we take care of the people. And sometime, say earlier, people used to do that job of small dumpers and trippers. Now is a bigger size, more than 100 ton big equipments are there. So people have to be trained. We have skill development have to be done regularly basis. New people have to be appointed. People have to be trained. And nowadays I found another thing which was the 20th century. Now the people, the very small level of job, even class 3 and class 4, highly educated people are coming. That is a difficulty again. When you advise the people, you put this is minimum qualification required. You will never put this highest qualification. Suppose I need a person at a skill 3, very, very small level, and some engineer apply for that. I can't deny him. Wait a point. I will give you one real life example. Years back, I was very, very young officer, maybe the very junior level at Durgapur Steel Plant when I joined. It is goes back to the 83, 84. I was shifted in charge. Suddenly I found one young person has joined as a semi-skilled worker. Then I found his qualification. He is a MSc Physics. I just asked him, before that what he was told, I was lecturer in a college. Near Durgapur, Bankura is a place. One private college, he was lecturer in physics. He left the service and joined unskilled worker at a Durgapur steel plant. I found how it's happened, why? Well, an unskilled worker in Durgapur is getting more salary than the lecturer of physics. But I found that fellow have a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of practice. And we have motivated him. He done within another 2-3 years, IMR, that engineering this by the, this AMI he has done. And he competed for this, and another year he became a junior manager. He joined as executive. And then he was so interested, he joined REC Durgapur and he done the MTech also. So certain people are motivated by certain things. With that background also they have developed it in the organization. Another example, just opposite. How people leave the things, how the behavior. Sometime we at senior position, maybe the HR level, maybe the management level, doesn't behave properly, doesn't give respect, it doesn't follow the rules, or maybe we are not transparent in our things, so we are not able to retain, or maybe the behavior persons are in compulsion of working there. I'm giving one of the example. There was one officer working very sincerely. He was very close to the top management also. He got very good appraisal, got his fast promotions. Suddenly, his boss was given him a good ranking. He left the organization and he filled up a best appraisal for that executives. It was in that time, the appraisal used to be after the completion of financial April, and December he left. So his appraisal was given as a best. That fellow went outside for 2-3 years for abroad for some study. And the system was there. When he came back, there was found there is no appraisal. He told it's not my fault, but he was told no, you have to fill up again. He filled up. To whom should I give it? That HR man that time told you give it to me. He told, I am a purely technical person. I was reporting to technical department. For the 3 years back appraisal, you want to give the HR, you don't know me. What? No, you give it to me. He just filled up his average appraisals. And then he could not get his promotion even after 2 years of his eligibility. He became totally demotivated. He met with personal department head that time and asked, I want to meet the chief executive because this injustice is being done to me. He told, why you want to meet the chief justice? You are fighting against a wall. Wall seldom break. Always head will break. He decided to go to chief executive. He met him and told about everything. This happened. Chief executive says, sorry, this is the rules. I can't do anything. What happened? Next day that fellow is resigned, joined some private company, gone out. So the very brilliant and good officer we have lost. This is a behavior part that also matters a lot to retain the employee. So these are the 3-4 things are there in a life which matter a lot. But definitely, if we come back to thing, regularly skill have to be given. How is doing, and what is required skill to be given to the people. Retain them by giving the positive. I'm giving another one example. I met one of the top person from the private industry, in the private steel making. He was also the, I should say, the chief executive, or rather he's the owner of the company. We just ask questions. You are giving a lot of people, you are training them, and they are going back. After some, how you retain? The question was there, how you retain your people? His answer was very different. Well, I don't bother. I don't want to retain anything. Who want to remain in my company, let him remain. Who want to leave, let him go out. Because why? You will lose after you are trained all those things. He told, I calculated. For regular employee, I have to pay very high. But this short-term employee, contract employees, we pay almost 50%. It will take 3 months to train the person. I don't want to go much high skill. I want just simple. If he's doing the motor winding, he should do the motor winding. If he's doing the fitter job, he should do job. A small skill was given to him. It will take 3 months. So the 3-month cost only I will calculate. Then he will remain 1 year, 2 years. Whenever he want to leave, let him leave. I don't give him a high raise. So it was their philosophy. He found that almost 20 to 30% people are leaving, and he was managing with that thing. So these are the different things of the skill. But today's time, again, we find that we see our families, our own children's. Because I am very senior level, and we found that we remain with a long time, but our young children who are working in the organization, I found that within 3 years they change sometimes 4 organizations or 5 organizations, sometimes go up. So there are different things. There is another working, people go, but sometimes we have to pay a little higher if we want a skill. So that is a balance is required. And this is the thing which I want to say at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kothari. I really enjoyed your stories as much as I enjoyed what was behind those stories. So thank you very much. Now is the time when we get into a real question-answer session. Although we had the panelists speak about their respective areas, what I'm about to do is give them one standard question. I'm only hoping that your answers are short and crisp. I'd rather get to the audience and have you ask questions, but you'd have to wait some time. You'll have to wait a while. So let me finish with some of the questions that I have. I'll come to you. We have a lot of time for question and answers. Okay. So my very first question, and you can take your mics. Each one of you, I'd really request a short response. Do you buy talent or do you build talent? Do you buy capability or do you build capability?
So the cop-out answer would be to say both, but I think the strategy in our case is to borrow from biotechnology, which is to create for every new skill a nucleus which we may buy, and then let the cells proliferate by building along that nucleus.
Oh, thank you, Ma.
Our philosophy predominantly has been to build capability, but given the dynamic change that is happening, buying will not give you an enterprise capability. So in a way, what we tend to look at is how do you work on a bridge model? And let's say, if I want to sort of acquire a competency on warehousing management of agri-commodities. So I work with partners who are experts in that, so the larger organization interface happens, and that's a bridge model to acquire the capability.
Thank you, Prabhakar.
I'll say that in typical public sector, hello, in the typical public sector, normally, initial stage, definitely when we recruit, we buy, but 99% we build the capability. Rarely we take people inside. So the majority is that we build the capability. Sometimes people will go outside and work there, but generally we build capability. Hardly we buy capability.
We build, okay.
So as a philosophy, we largely want to build capability. However, some amount of external talent coming in brings in fresh ideas, thoughts, and best practices. So that is a conscious decision we have to take, and we continue to take, where we will infuse some external, talent. So buy is limited.
Buy is limited. Building is good. That's kind of what I see right across the panel. There's something called the dynamic capabilities. The assumption is that capabilities will keep changing. There's innovation that comes in, technology changes. So at a time when it takes some time building capabilities and then the whole thing changes, question to you and to the panel is, it takes time. And therefore, in this paucity of time, how do you manage in the interim if many things keep changing? So at a time when you have a dynamic capability that keeps changing all the time, and capability itself, building, takes time, how do you manage this?
Okay, I think one of the ways, and that also works with the younger generation very well, and the others have adapted to it, is digitalize the education as much as possible. So all repeatable, information intensive can be digitalized. However, capability of managers and leaders to coach, I think, is the biggest capability, which will help you develop faster. It gets distributed.
I think one of the enterprise capabilities we need is that the organization should be flexible and a learning organization. And if that comes in, then the manager's ability to coach and the employee's ability to perceive the need to change will be that much faster.
Thank you, Aman.
The way at least I have experienced it being built is to inculcate this whole habit and practice of building scenarios. And so you actually try to look at what all could happen and how should I deal with. With your permission, I just wanted to give a flip to the dynamic capabilities. Sure. And I go back to the IR example again. One of the big challenges that we find today is if you have not gone through a strike or a lockout experience, and God forbid you're confronted with a situation like that, there are many organizations today that knowledge is not existing at all. And I'm saying even in a company like 100 years, if we haven't had a strike or a lockout for the last 10, 15 years, let's say, the current breed of HR professionals don't know anything about it. So we are looking that also as, in a sense, a dynamic capability. Going back to history, and as Rachana said, in terms of how do we digitize it, how do we put it together so that before you're confronted, we actually sort of go through that experience.
Well, that's a nice perspective.
Particularly in this manufacturing industry of general like steel and mining, there is not much change and the dynamic things are there. But still some time, after some years when changes go, I just tell the blast furnace was continuing from 100 years. Some modifications are there. So whatever changes are there, they are in mostly the automation, elegance. The basic fundamentals was there from the long time, but still we feel that regular capability building is required, upgradation is required, but it's not as fast as in the IT area or other areas. In the manufacturing, it is there, but compared to this, it's slow and it is manageable.
Thank you. Another quick couple of questions, and then we'll come to you. This is the new age for learning and development, online content, MOOCs, which is the massive online open courses, collaboration tools. Social media is now fueling a training model where employees own their skills, experts share knowledge very, very freely. What are your views about this new age learning and applicability today in organizations?
I think the concept of new age learning really is, what the guys are saying is, don't tell me anything that's already available on the net.
Sure.
And what's not available on the net is experience.
Experience.
And to me, the key dimension of new age learning would be is, how am I able to sort of distill the experiences, convert it into insights, and then share it with the larger fraternity.
Oh, that's good.
So, just continuing from where Prabhakar kind of talked about it, I think while we use all the traditional e-learning methods, etc., we really find that what we need to do is create experience. And experience comes only through action learning. And we also find that individual experience is actually not very relevant. So it's actually delivering through a team experience which is probably more critical. So we have a 70-10-20-10 philosophy, which is 70% is action learning, 20% is coaching, mentoring, and 10% is training. So training could be e-learning, whatever. But really, it's about working with people to deliver the results in a new scenario, as you say. And we also have a reward component attached to it. We have a competitive scenario where 10% of your pay you can earn by participating in a change management initiative, which is nothing but an action learning program with a team.
Wow. Wow, that's really innovative.
Okay. So, some amount of learning through this has been helping us, because on our internal Facebook, people are able to share and learn from each other. However, I agree with the other two panelists that the experience-based learning is really what makes the needle move.
Thank you.
Single thing I should say is new age learning is good, and through this knowledge sharing through this media or the Facebook, it helps a lot. But again, that on the field, on the equipment required,
on the job,
that is the main part, and that is required.
Absolutely. Another very, very quick one. Diversity is key factor in building capabilities in the 21st century workforce, diversity. And given our shifting workforce, the new social order and sensibilities, what's a good way to sustain this momentum, if not accelerate?
So I think
I knew you were going to start.
Yeah. So first thing about diversity, and especially gender diversity, is that is everybody clear about the business imperative for it? Is it a nice to do initiative, or is it something which is very fundamental to the business? Are you going to value the skills which both the genders bring in, the capability with both the genders bring in? And if that is so, and that translates into your business results and revenues, then that clarity is really very, very important for managers to have. And then, of course, what enabling environment can you create in the organization for a gender diverse workforce? Can you have flexibility? Because the three aspects when women really have, challenges is marriage, is when you go for maternity, and when there's a mobility and you need to move. So in such environments, are you able to provide the comfort of getting people back in a enabling environment? Some of the experiments we have done is getting people back from maternity and giving them very flexible roles and very flexible work environments to work in, which is worked better. So that's my experience on it.
Good.
I will tell you one thing, just coming from this. It appears okay that both the gender can work at each and every role. Fine. The practical experience is different. Suppose we get 20 female employees join in a company. I will tell you, after a few months, almost 80% applied for posting at cities, posting at Better Life, and where their husbands are working. They cannot be in the same places, because a particular industry where I'm coming, they are difficult areas. And every time they put pressure on coming. Then second part, if they're working the same, say when I was in Bhilai, you can't put there's a law, female employee in a shift, because you required in a work, similar work if so. Either you take for the personal, finance, education is fine, but when there's a real manufacturing is there, then people have to work round the clock. A lot of heat and dust are there. Sometimes it is difficult. I found that some females are there who work, but by and large, people avoid those type of tough postings. That's.
By the way, the panelists, one of the things I'd like to just mention out here is I'm looking at diversity in a broader context, just not diversity as it relates to gender. So we have an opportunity for the next couple of panel members to speak to it.
In fact, I was hoping that broadening would happen. I think it's very natural for everybody to like people who are like them. So I think that's fundamental to the human being. So what is that commonality that you can establish in an organization which has people from all walks of life, different genders, different socio-economic status. In India, it can also be the language you speak, the religion you practice or don't practice, and the food you eat, and the way you dress. They can all be diverse indicators. So I think organizational contexts have a great opportunity to create that organizational identity, which allows for inclusion and then allows for people to build capabilities. Because we need that common factor. We need something which says you and me are alike. So what is it that we can do to bring that together so that we can all grow together?
I'll take that to one more level up, actually. For us, the momentum of diversity is basically through our strategy of organization. And what I mean is, let's say we are in the foods business. One option could have been all departments which are critical reside in foods department. But the way we have done our strategy of organization is the entire agri-sourcing part of it for the foods is a separate division. So you get an opportunity to take an independent point of view. And also what happens in the process is, if I'm buying wheat for my foods business, I'm also buying wheat for many other customers, both in India and abroad. So when I engage with them, you get that perspective and that flows back to the organization. So strategy of organization is a key element for sustaining momentum for us.
Thank you. We now get into what I call as a rapid fire. So I request all the panelists to kindly take your mics, keep them in your hands. And the way we'll do this is, you got to respond in just one word or two words. It's got to be spontaneous. It's got to be something which is on top of your mind. I'm not going to scare you anymore. Your first question, your role model, who's your role model? And it is okay to say if it's your wife or your husband. Okay? Go.
My mother.
Mother. My father.
Sachin Tendulkar.
Sachin Tendulkar.
Mr. YG Choksey, who actually got me to believe in myself.
Okay, Mr. Choksey. Okay. If I gave you a plane ticket to go anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Turkey.
Turkey?
Udaipur.
Udaipur. Very well. Very well. That's very interesting.
I'll use it to come back home.
You, you keep traveling all the time, Uma. Thank you.
I would like to go to Kulu Manali.
Kulu Manali. Very good. Beach or the mountains?
Mountains.
Mountains? Mountains. Sorry? Beach or the mountains?
Beach.
Beach?
Mountains.
Mountains. Okay. Books or movies?
Books.
Books?
Movies.
Movies?
Books.
Books?
Movies.
I really like this sing song. Books, movies, books, movies, books. Okay. I never get tired of. Fill in the blanks with just one word. I never get tired of.
Badminton.
Badminton.
Working.
Working. Oh, wow.
Life.
Life.
Listening.
Listening. Okay. If you did not do what you're doing right now, responding me that is, what job would you be taking up? I mean, if there's an alternate career, what would you take that up as? Alternate career.
Social entrepreneur.
Social entrepreneur.
A doctor.
A doctor. Wow.
Difficult, I don't know.
But I'm sure that whichever one that you take, you will keep working.
Yeah.
Okay?
Would have taken theatre.
Theatre. Lovely. And I'm sure that that's been a big loss to that industry there. If you could steal one thing other than money without getting caught, what would that be?
Time.
Time. Wow.
Wisdom.
Wisdom.
Time.
Time.
Integrity.
Integrity. Wonderful. What object best represents your personality? One object that represents your personality. This is me, one object. What is it?
A horse.
A horse. Very good.
Moon.
Moon. Okay.
I think a needle with a thread.
Needle.
Because it moves with a purpose and carries everything along.
That's a lot of one word. Thank you.
Caring of people.
Sorry?
What exactly?
The question was, what object represents you? What is the symbol that is Mr. Kothari?
Somebody says Singham, sir.
नहीं, नहीं. I should, this is nothing coming to mind, but
May I suggest something? When I look at you, this word steel comes to mind. Steel comes to mind. Anyway. What fictional character would you have been? What is one fictional character that you really like? Any fictional character. Any fictional character. Rachna.
James Bond.
James Bond. Lovely. The steel man with the James Bond. Okay. Very good. Any fictional character?
Sherlock Holmes?
Sherlock Holmes. Wonderful.
Oswald.
Sorry?
Oswald.
Oswald. Oh, wow. Okay.
Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew. Okay, the famous writer. Okay, very good. The last one is connected to our business. So that's how I'm going to sign off. What is the one word which could make this promise come true of Make in India? This goal of Make in India, what is the one word that you see as most key in achieving this promise of Make in India? Scale. Wonderful.
Involve India.
Involvement.
Involve India. Involve India.
Involve India. Involve India. Engage India. Determination.
Young workforce.
Young workforce. Wonderful. As you would have, yes, a round of applause. A round of applause. A round of applause. Thank you. I'd now throw this open to the House. I have only one request to make of you. Keep your questions really short, and we will ensure that we will have shorter answers for you. Anybody that wishes to ask a question, kindly raise your hand. We will come to you. The first one is
A
from,
for Amar.
Yes, please.
This is for Rachna. You said everyone is unique. That's what I teach also. The question asked to me, I couldn't answer. I am learning from you. I am a seeker. How does, if I am a unique person, how does the HR take care of it to give what I am unique in? Or will you force them to do what the organization wants?
So possibly the question, as I understand, Amar, is everyone is unique. How do you have unique capabilities getting built through unique programs that apply and appeal to unique people? So what is something which is personalized, customized kind of stuff?
Okay. So actually a lot in terms of having a lot of different types of tools blended together. People are visual, people are auditory, people are kinesthetic. So can it be a blended learning of seeing, of understanding, of experiencing somewhere where you can have, and there are organizations doing this, so where you can have classroom learning, you can have project learning, you can teach each other, you can learn from your mentors. So, I mean, that is what I mean by unique and yet.
So a lot of blended learning, looking at different ways of appealing to individuals. That's a great question. I saw another hand here. Yes, please.
Good evening to everyone. This is Dr. Manohar, former director of Vizag Steel Plant. It was wonderful, all the panelists, and equally well by the moderator had given great inputs for the beautiful topic. Now my question is, or my clarification is specifically addressed to my friend Mr. Narendra Kothari, who had the privilege of working in the SAIL plants. I too had the privilege of working at Rourkela for 10 years and then moving to Vizag Steel at its inception. Now, based on your experience at SAIL, now when NMDC has entered into steel plants, construction, building and operation, particularly with reference to our Nagarnar steel plant, which is 3 million ton, Vizag at 3 million ton had 15,000. When it expanded to doubling the capacity, it had only 2,000. So I'm sure you also are trying at Nagarnar some specific things. Now in the context of engaging the 21st century workforce at Nagarnar, what specific workforce capability initiatives you are envisaging? That will be great input for the educationists as well as the industry managers present over here. Thank you, please.
As you rightly said, that NMDC has entered into the new work, that is a steel plant operation. They are basically a capability in the mining. There is no capability of a steel plant, steel manufacturing and thing. But because it is a big challenge has been taken by the NMDC, now we have recruiting the people, training the people, but at the same time, we are finding a operation maintenance contract to the big steel manufacturer. So in the next 3 years' time, they will run our plant along with our people will be trained. So on the job skill will be there, whatever is required will be there. And then it will be fully operational, it will be there. So by going with the experts who have experience in the running steel plant, we are engaging them for initial 3 years. They will train our people, working together with that. Okay. Numbers? Numbers, earlier in Shibai, now we have planned, we will have around 3,500 people to produce 3 million tons of steel. That is numbers.
I am Dr. Chukka Kondaiya, former Director General, National Institute for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Presently, I am CEO, NTR Trust. I have general opinion on this. Particularly, my opinion is to Madam Uma. I think capabilities are acquired. Most of the capabilities are acquired. And it is nurtured or groomed from school stage, from learning stage itself. That is why the significance of entrepreneurship at school level, college level, at university level. So that the candidates can be trained, can be open-minded, or ready to do better job. So my opinion is enterprise capabilities are behind, people are behind enterprise capability. People means entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs means effective people. So this thing is, entrepreneurship need to be introduced in higher education.
Well, that is an opinion. So, what is your question?
My question is, enterprise capability will be based on effective people, those are entrepreneurs. Enterprise capability is materialistic, and people are behavior, effective people must be there for achieving the goals of the enterprise.
So how do you build entrepreneurial skills in organizations, perhaps, is the one that I received from you.
That is the one thing, and also that
so let's just stay with that. So that's a question to the panel.
I don't know if you have some background to our organization. We are a very highly, what we call an entrepreneurial culture, where there's a lot of freedom to work. And just taking on another example, when you talk about learning and capability building of unique individuals, one of the freedoms that we offer is you can deliver that capability uniquely. There is space and time for an employee to deliver the capability in the way that employee can best deliver that capability. So it's not one rule, one set, one method of working. And we believe we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our organization, and that comes from a culture which encourages freedom and independence and risk-taking. So that's the only way to develop that kind of culture. But that is not to say that other cultures are not effective. There could be different cultures in different organizations, which could all be effective. So this is just one way of doing, I would admit.
Thank you, Amma. Let's go to the back benches, but before I go there, I see the lady out here. Would you want to ask your question, ma'am? I will come to you, but I just wanted to go to the back benches. I will come to you.
Thank you. Myself, Surbhi. I represent Quadrangle. My question I'm picking up from the same thread where Ms. Rachna left. She was talking about the capability building. Then why at the time of hiring, why do we set the expectations very similar, and when we are hiring a new person, we look at the same capabilities in a new person, and that capability building, that replica model, which takes a lot of time. So why that uniqueness is not found or not trying to find in a new person? So that's the simple question which I want to ask.
I I think this question is really very, very good. When I was thinking about this topic, this crossed my mind. And I think organizations we are trying to pull that uniqueness of employees and get it. But I think somewhere early on in our, education and system of even choosing people for higher education, we have stereotyped it a little bit. So I think it's a very good point, and while we are consciously trying to get people who are different, but to break this myth that every manager would want to hire people like them. So to break this is really what is very, very difficult. So I think I don't have a ready answer saying that, yeah, everybody is doing it very well. I think we are trying to do it. We've not mastered it. But this is the direction we should be going.
We should be taken. The question to you, sir.
Thank you, Nathan. My name is Sunil Kalra. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Chaturvedi for calling me in here. I'm an alumnus of BIMTech. And it was a real pleasure because this whole event came to Hyderabad because I hail from Hyderabad. My question is to Rachna. I am looking for some paid professional help, basically. The question that suddenly came to my mind when I heard her saying that while at a junior level and at senior leadership level, we have lots of interventions and focus, at mid-management level, we kind of lose a bit. And that's the conundrum I am facing. I am HR head in Dr. Reddy's for emerging markets. I have close to 15 countries under my portfolio, and I have country heads in each of these countries. In our company hierarchy, they are called as mid-managers. All of them have spent a good 10 to 15 years. We kind of developed their capabilities and sent them there. They are there for about 5 to 10 years now. And they are working with diverse cultures, like Russia, where there are lots of women, like South Africa, Venezuela, Ukraine, under political turmoil and war situation. The question is, what kind of intervention should we develop for these people if we want to kind of really build them as future leaders for Dr. Reddy's? The way we are growing, we definitely would need more future leaders. So what would be your idea in terms of your expertise? And also at the same time, Nathan's idea, because he hails from an organization which kind of provides this kind of help, professional help. So if you can kind of give me some color on that, so that I can kind of build and precipitate my thoughts, and then look for a long-term solution from one of you.
So Rachna, before you step in, thank you. We will professionally engage with you, sir. Thank you for that opportunity. Rachna, over to you.
Okay, there are various models in which leadership development at mid-level can happen. I think one experience that I have of a successful model is that you give them certain skills or whatever is required for the senior management role, so leadership building in that direction. However, really challenge them to perform and contribute to real-time projects which are linked with the business results of the organization.
Very true.
And give them the exposure to the senior leadership in terms of challenging them, spending time with them, reviewing what they are doing.
The question is, how do you do it in 15 different countries? And perhaps that's the challenge.
So that I missed out. So actually that we do all the time. Again, we very digitally connect and do this. So people across globes form a focus group. They form a learning team. And they're reviewed digitally and they work digitally through it. So it happens all the time. You don't need to be face-to-face to be doing everything.
Good. I go back to the audience.
Hello?
So I think what I've got to do is I've got to come somewhere here. I'm not able to see some of you.
Sir, this is Vijay Chand. I got a question.
You see, this is what happens. Somebody has the mic, they have the privilege of speaking. The privilege goes to you.
So I got a question, sir, to Ms. Uma. As you correctly told, in this 21st century, multi-generation workforce already into manufacturing environment. Given that as a challenge, to create an inclusive learning environment, it's the greatest challenge normally we see in a manufacturing environment. Out of your experience, you just give me a scenario like how really inclusive learning environment to be created in the organization.
All right. We recently had a company-wide contest where we had a contest called the to discover the packaging gems in our industry. And believe me, we had 200 people participating in that, and we had 3 winners at the end of it. The whole effort ran for a year, and it was certainly multi-generational and certainly very diverse. And surprisingly, the first winner was a youngster, and the second winner was somebody who was 40 years old. Wonderful. So it's possible.
Wonderful. It is possible. So before I go there, this gentleman has been asking for an opportunity. So you need a mic?
Can I ask my question?
Good evening. My name is Narendra Agrawal. I come from Indian Immunologicals Limited. My question is from what Mr. Nathan presented, the research findings presented by you. The one point that attracted my attention the most was the fact that you mentioned globally HR is lagging far behind in the essential skills, including analytics, technology, and even business acumen. If the findings are to be believed, in fact, I would like to believe that because it comes from a very reliable source, and I'm also of the same view, coming from the manufacturing sector, where I feel that HR is yet to come out of its support function mindset. Enabling performance and supporting growth is yet to be seen. So if that is true, then what are the reasons behind this? Second, if HR is lagging behind in essential skills, then isn't it time that we should be talking of building HR capability more than talking of engaging workforce? Because if HR is lagging behind, engaging workforce will only remain a dream.
This is a marvelous thing. I mean, if that's a question that you're trying to address to me, one of the things that I have as a rule is if it's a question that I can respond to, I will say that's a very good question. If I have no idea how to respond to that, I will say that's an outstanding question and turn this over to the august panel. This is an outstanding question. I want to turn this over to the panel. But I'm not going to run away. I will come back and I will give you my perspective as well. Let the panel very quickly respond to this. By the way, there's another question in a question, which is, what capabilities have you built in yourself, even as you're talking about building capabilities in organizations?
I think sort of related at a personal level, one capability that one has been consciously trying to build, I would say, is to really develop a business perspective. And to me, that can only happen by practicing.
Excellent. Uma?
I think my CV, which Nathan read out, answers the question. I've actually run businesses, and I understand the business perspective. So I usually lead from there.
So it's very similar. I mean, getting to know the business first is really the capability I try to do in every organization. Learn the business first, learn the industry first. That is where
I think if I were to just add this thing, many a times we make a mistake thinking that somebody will tell us to do that. I think that's the biggest mistake we make. It just has to be done by you. Don't wait for anybody else.
What I feel so when 35 years back started, just came out from college, not knowing what is the thing, just working with somebody's instruction. And after 35 years, what I learned most is understand the people. That's what I learned maximum. And that capability has brought me to this level.
Can I add just one more point?
Absolutely, please.
Okay. So I think as HR, leaders, we feel meeting the employees is very important. But meeting the customer gives such insights about employees that it is really very, very valuable.
That comes from experience, right? You can't give insights from outside. It comes from within.
That's the reason why it's called insights. My response to this question is very, very, I'll keep this really crisp. I think we've got to reinvent ourselves. The HR function has got to reinvent ourselves. We got to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, this is the skill that I don't possess. We've got to understand the nature of the business. We could soon be extinct. Today, technology is driving a number of things that we used to do someday. Many jobs are getting outsourced. I talked about how technology in itself will make sure that almost 50-60% of work that we did is going to be automated. So under these circumstances, how will we add value? And perhaps that is the million-dollar question. Business is asking us this question, and it's time that we respond to that. I have time for one last question. I'll take this lady out there with the glasses. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My question is to the panelists who are sitting there. We had a question about the diversity, wherein we suddenly jumped on to the gender diversity. And one of the popular notion that came out that in manufacturing, the girls cannot stand out or do well. I'm from Infosys and currently working in IT sector. I'm a manager's favorite for now, at least. And what I want to tell you is that there is a stereotype in this, all built around entire thing. I remember when I went for my BTech, my parents were of the opinion I should not take mechanical engineer just for this stereotype. When we are talking about HR, we should take in consider that every employee that you are considering is male and female, both. And when you are saying that you want to retain employee, you need to talk about that every need that each and every gender is having. I completely agree with the panelists when they said that every individual is having their own capabilities, and that is when we come out with the best of the results. Moreover, when we say that we are talking about retaining, when your better halves, the males, are working at their places, their second halves are doing another part of the world. So when they are asking for going at their parental places or residing with their husbands, it's at the same time making them equally capable at their work. And then only they do the best of the work. Thank you.
That was not a question, but an outstanding point of view. A round of applause to the young lady, please. Thank you so much for raising it. It really is an insight, and it's nice of you to have raised it. The person who's standing last in any which row, I would take that question. Yes, ma'am.
A very good evening to all of you. All the panelists talked about the experiential learning. But the professions like IT and consulting, where work from home and working from remote locations is becoming so prevalent. So how do you plan to inculcate experiential learning in the coming 10 to 15 years, when people are not really needed to go to work?
So
basically, I mean office.
From remote locations, how do you have experiential learning come through?
Just the way you work remotely, you also learn remotely. There's so much digital capability today and so much telecommunication capability today that you can learn. Just as you work remotely and digitally, you can also learn remotely and digitally, and you can also collaborate remotely and digitally. I think it should be possible.
Okay, thank you for that response. Yes, sir?
I have one question. I'm part of IT industry. And nowadays, what I'm seeing in newspaper, even that some companies are giving iPad, iPhone, some companies are giving world tour, and some companies laying off. Means they are forming the groups to meet the Narendra Modi. So my question is that IT industry means attrition is inevitable. But as per your experience, what do you think that how we can retain those talents? Because if someone is getting 30%, 60%, 90%, say hike, they are switching on to other companies. Some companies are very much relying on...
That's a very good question.
And one last point.
No, hold on. This one is about capability building. Can you focus your question on capability building?
Yeah, so my question is... means as per my understanding, some companies are heavily relying on poaching. Some companies are grooming the talent. As per your experience, you have vast amount of experience, how to retain talent for IT industry, especially those who are laggard, those who are follower. I'm not saying about the leaders, those who are in service company and wants to retain talent. What should be their strategy to retain talents?
The panelists, if it is okay, can I respond to this? Okay. The one simple way of retaining your talent is if you genuinely believe in them and believe in the capabilities that they are capable of and build that in people, why would anybody leave you? That is what we ought to be doing. I know that we could go on for a lot more. I'm going to take the very last question for the day from the person who has the mic. I'm going to come to you. Okay, the second last, okay? Right. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I represent Indian School of Business. So my question is to Uma. I hope there is a lot of echo in the mic. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Carry on.
So, Uma, as you were mentioning that you have a challenge of facing 4th generation in the company. So, I mean, for me, engagement is, you know, contribution to the company and satisfaction of an employee. So, when we have a 4 set of employees wherein highly satisfied and highly contributing, low contributors and low satisfied employee, or high contributor or low satisfied. So when I'm designing an engagement, which set of employee I need to consider and why?
You're talking about generational inequity in performance. Please carry on.
I think I understood the question as an engagement question.
As an engagement question, yes.
Rather than as a capability building question.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you want me to take it?
Do we wish her to take this question? The answer is no.
I'm sorry.
The answer is no.
You have to focus on capability
We got to focus
building.
on capabilities. So the question goes to you, ma'am.
And we can talk
We can
outside.
talk this offline.
Yes,
So
we can talk offline. I promise you.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
find you.
the panelists are all going to be here. You can really take a lot of time off them. The question, particularly on capability building, goes to you.
So my question is regarding the service industry and particularly the startups. The kind of speed that they grow with, in fact, you know, people even don't have time to complete their work. We're moving with 10x speed. So specifically, what would your inputs be to engage employees and the capability building right from the ground level to the leadership level?
Everybody is in a bit of a hurry. How do you build capabilities?
I think actually startups are a great capability building intervention on their own. You don't need a classroom, you don't need anything, all the experience is happening out there. I mean, a lot of people are choosing those careers today only because of this reason.
And engaging them?
I think, if I may add, Rachna, you're actually a natural breeding ground for general managers. It's a very rare skill because, you know, you make the coffee, you also make the profit and loss account. And you also, by the way, go and sell to the customer and maybe also do the innovation on the product. So you can't get any better than that.
Excellent. Prabhakar, be ready. There's a question coming up for you.
I am Mohan Rao from Electronics Corporation of India. My question is to Mr. Kothari, sir. The question is, CSR is an emerging profession, and I think NMDC is hiring in a big way to build the CSR cadre in the company. How are you proposing to build this capability in CSR staff?
How do you build CSR capabilities? And I'm not going to stop you as well, but because you have a lot of work there. Yes? Sir, if you could use a mic.
CSR, NMDC's name is synonymous CSR. We are spending more than 200 crores per year for CSR activities in an area like Chhattisgarh, where even armed forces find difficult to go. NMDC people, workers goes and work, and we do CSR activities in that area. Our own, from last, is not now, last so many years, we involved CSR, local people, Sarpanch, district magistrate, commissioner, chief secretary, signed MOU. So there is a process our people are regularly doing. We have full department of CSR. Experts people are there who are working on that, and we're financing the things. We work on the area of education. Our aim is no child should remain illiterate. Second is a health, where the rate is every child in that area, poor child, should get a full medical facilities. Capability wise, you are doing in this area, we are developed in that area. The local tribal girls, we have sponsored them. They are taking training, and we are being training them in Apollo Hospital here, nursing. So they are getting and they are taking care of their CSR activities and going back to that area. Similarly, in education, we are building more on not only education to the children, but education of the teachers. So quality education should come. So they are also building. We are taking help of certain good NGOs, professional NGOs, and building. Through them, we are doing the CSR work in that area.
Thank you, sir. If you could also chime in.
Just two quick things. At least the way we look at it in ITC is it has to become part and parcel of your DNA, and it's a responsibility of every employee. Second, what we have looked at is to deliver CSR, again, you require some specific enterprise-wide capabilities. And one such capability could be is how do you work with the ecosystem of partners.
Yes.
And so the moment you identify that, then you go through the whole process of co-creating that enterprise capability.
Okay, we are almost at the end of our session. It is, I still see a number of hands which have gone up. My personal apologies if I have not come to you. We have an opportunity this evening where you could interact with several members of the panel. In closing, all I would say is this has been a very good interaction. We've learned from each other. You've been such wonderful hosts. Thank you, BIMTech. Thank you for attending this session in large numbers. I'm told that you can live 20 days without food, but you can't live more than 2 days without drinking. So on that very happy note, I'm going to turn this over to the organizers to take us to the concluding part of this wonderful evening. Over to the organizers. Thank you.
Thanks to all the participants for sharing your experiences and giving us such a lovely and exciting session here today. May I now request Mr. Kamal Singh, Director General of National HRD Network, to please deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Manasi. Distinguished Chairperson of the session, Mr. S.B. Nathan, Director Talent, Deloitte Consulting India Private Limited, and also our knowledge partner, Director of Birla Institute of Management Technology, Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Professor K.K. Sinha, and our esteemed panelists on the dais, starting from Mr. Narendra Kothari, Chairman and Managing Director, NMDC, Mr. L. Prabhakar, Vice President, HR, Agribusiness Division, ITC Limited, and our own Regional President, South, Ms. Rachna Mukherjee, Country Partner and CHRO, Schneider Electric, Ms. Uma Deva Guptapu, CHRO, ITOS Signot, and many of our board members, Mr. Ravikant Reddy, who has just landed here, and Mr. Mohan Rao, and our Prasad Reddy, our Vice President of HMA here, our Hyderabad chapter, and Mr. Manohar, who has come all the way to attend this program, Mr. Amar Chegu, Mr. Madhupal, and many others. I think, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that NHRD and BIMTech HR Roundtable on the theme engaging on the 21st century workforce capability concluded with a very huge participants and powerful deliberation by eminent panelists on the dais. I am not going to stand between you and the lovely dinner waiting for you, but what I would like to acknowledge the contribution of each and everyone who made it possible such a wonderful session this evening. First of all, we are grateful to our distinguished panelists, first for having accepted our invitation despite their heavy commitments to join us, and also making this evening so lively and enriching. Each one of them, right from Mr. Kothari, Mr. Prabhakar, Ms. Uma, Ms. Rachna Mukherjee, along with Mr. Nathan, really brought so much thought leadership on such an apt and contemporary topic today. On behalf of NHRDN and BIMTech, we are indeed grateful to each one of them. Please do join me in appreciating their contribution by a big round of applause, please. Thank you indeed, all the panelists on the dais. We are equally grateful to Deloitte, especially for being the knowledge partner, and also to Mr. S.B. Nathan for orchestrating this session so lively and brilliantly. Ladies and gentlemen, the way Mr. Nathan had moderated the session, the value that we got from each panelist was indeed very heartening. In fact, I always feel so much privileged to work with him. I saw his capability in terms of chairing a session in Delhi. I said, you were in Hyderabad, how can we miss you? So therefore, you have been very kind to accept that opportunity. He said, in Hyderabad, I know, everybody knows me, but I think NHRDN can't leave him here. And we are really privileged to have him here. And on behalf of the BIMTech and NHRDN, we are grateful to him for his valuable time and enriching the deliberations. May I request you, ladies and gentlemen, again, to please join me in giving a very big hand to Mr. Nathan, please. We are equally grateful to all our participants, without whose presence this session would have not taken place. The amount of articulation, views, ideas gathered on both the sides really reflects the success of this program. It is largely to these participants. So ladies and gentlemen, do join me in acknowledging our appreciation for all of you for joining us in large number, please. Finally, a big hand to media, especially NDTV Prime, who have agreed to telecast this program on their channel later. And it is to their capability, whatever the knowledge that has disseminated among all of you will get shared across the nation and across the states. Thank you, NDTV Prime, for being the media partner, please. Last but not the least, thank you entire organizing team, right from Dr. Harbhajan Chaturvedi, Professor K.K. Sinha, Professor Manasi, Dr. Das, Abhinav, Amit, and Hyderabad chapter team, led by, again, Mr. Prasad, and yesterday I only spoke to Mr. Harbhajan Soin, Mr. Mayan, and many others who really went extra miles to make this event a great success. A big hand to all of them, please. Thank you indeed, all the delegates, dignitaries, and speakers to be part of this HR roundtable. Before I sign off, I would like to draw your attention for only 1 minute to announce our forthcoming HR shared services scheduled to be held on 29th and 30th January 2015 at Hotel Lalit, Mumbai, where again BIMTech is our B-School partner. So I think, can you get that few highlights only for 1 minute? This is our second attempt on the NHRDN platform, and it is on HR shared and services. If you see the galaxy of speakers, those who have agreed, and you will find this new emerging concept of HR shared services is something that Indian companies are going to benefit. There are several sessions, and I only want to leave a thought here that if you find opportunity to be in Mumbai, and if you find that this program will help you, please do register. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us in large number, please.
Special thanks to Mr. Ravikant Reddy. He was supposed to be one of our panel members. Ravikant was the past president of the Hyderabad chapter. He's currently a senior member of the leadership group in L&T. He had a personal emergency, but I really appreciate your commitment, sir, for coming here and being with us here this evening. I truly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Dr. H. Chaturvedi, Director BIMTech, and Professor K.K. Sinha, Head HR Area and Chairperson Center for Management Development at BIMTech, to please felicitate our panelists. And to help us do the honors, we have our young alumni based in Hyderabad who have joined us for this event here today. Nupur. So that. Mr. S.V. Nathan. Ms. Rachna Mukherjee. Mr. Narendra Kothari. Mr. Kamal Singh, can we also have you on stage? To help us with the honors. Ms. Uma Dev Guptapu. Last but not the least, Mr. L. Prabhakar. Sinha sir, can we please felicitate Mr. Prabhakar? Thank you, Juhi. Thank you, Professor Sinha. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this conclave. And I'm sure that for each one of you, this program was an insightful and enriching experience. We look forward to your continuous feedback and engagement with the organizers. Please join us for dinner and cocktail, which is being served outside, and wish you all a very pleasant evening. I would request all our alumni, along with the organizing team and the panelists, to please assemble here for a group photograph. Thank you all.